So we're going to be talking about building high-performing international teams, proven strategies for global success. Leading international teams requires more than just overseeing tasks. It demands cultural sensitivity, effective communication, and adaptive leadership. Now, in this keynote, Sharon will be sharing insights on how to navigate the complexities of managing diverse, globally distributed teams. You will learn practical strategies for fostering collaboration across different time zones, understanding cultural nuances, and maintaining team cohesion. Discover how to overcome common challenges, leverage diverse perspectives, and create a high-performing team environment where every member feels valued and empowered, which is so important these days. She's been waiting in the wings for a few minutes. Please welcome Sharon Bessell. She is a global process owner, order to cash with TUI Global Business Services. She's a qualified with 30 years plus and worked in most areas of finance. Sharon enjoys managing and developing teams and focusing on continuous improvement and process excellence. And in Sharon's free time, she is very involved in local community. And when she can, I love this, she sings. Hi, Sharon. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you very much. What an intro.
Well, I have to ask, Sharon, what is your go-to song?
I probably like doing a little bit of Whitney, maybe. But I suppose the genre that I prefer singing the most is probably a bit of country rock. So that sort of thing, really. But yeah,
Well,
I'll have a go at anything.
if we have time at the end, I'm putting you on the spot.
Fabulous.
So I just noticed it's pronounced TUI as
TUI.
opposed to TUI. So tell us
Yep.
about TUI Global Business Services.
So TUI is the leading tour operator, holiday provider in Europe. So it's the largest holiday company in Europe, and it originated in Germany, but it's probably biggest in the UK, to be honest. Although it is all across Europe, and it's we're the kind of the business services, so the shared service centre, if you like. So it's global business service. We do all of their kind of transaction processing, but a lot more as well. We have a lot of HR financial, a lot of HR services in there, a lot of facilities management, but a lot of finance as well. So accounts payable, banking, treasury, accounts receivable, lots of different record to reporting activities, and it all sits within TUI Global Business Services.
Fantastic. Well, I know you're going to be talking about building high-performing international teams, which is an interesting subject, and I'm sure our attendees will have plenty of questions. So I'm going to keep an eye out for those questions. Are you going to do a Q&A at the end, or do you want me to just chime in if I see a question?
I don't mind either, actually. I don't mind. It might be easier sometimes if somebody's got a question to talk about it at the time it pops into people's minds. I don't mind, or people can wait until the end if they prefer.
Okay, very good. I'm going to shut my mic and camera off. It's over to you. And as I mentioned, I'll pop in if there's any questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. So hello, everybody. I'm hoping this will work okay. I'm not used to using Zoom. You'll see when I come talking through my presentation, we tend to use Microsoft Teams rather than Zoom. So I'm not familiar with how this all works. So hopefully you can see my presentation and it's all going to work okay. So as Rob said, I'm going to talk a bit about managing international teams. Oh, thanks for the thumbs up, whoever just gave me that one. At least I know you can see me and hear me, so that's good. So I thought first of all, give you a little bit of an introduction. So I've been working in finance now for over 40 years, where I've been leading teams, and I've had the opportunity to lead a huge wide range of teams. Really, I've had large teams, small teams. I've had national teams, and now I have an international team. So lots of different kind of varieties and sizes of teams. In the 1990s, I used to work for a very large retailer in the UK, and I had multi-location teams, but they were based in the UK. I had a big team in Milton Keynes, a big team in Manchester, and I had teams based around various distribution sites around the country. we didn't have the technology we have now, so most of the collaboration was done either in person on visits or over the telephone. So it sounds very old-fashioned now, doesn't it, talking over the telephone? But that was multi-location, but they were all UK-based. In 2017, I had my first introduction really to managing and leading international teams when I came to TUI Global Business Services. And my teams were based primarily in the UK, India, and Germany. So I had international teams there. It's developed further over the last year, where I now have additional team members in North Africa, in Tunisia, where we've based quite a lot of our activities from TUI Global Business Services. So it's been a challenging and eye-opening journey. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert in it by any means. I'm still learning. I didn't get everything right at the start, and I'm still learning today. But I thought it might be useful for me to just talk to you about some of the lessons I've learned, and kind of my understanding of some of the things that you need to do to make the team into a nice, cohesive, high-performing team. So I've structured this session today under various headings. And although these themes may overlap somewhat in some of the cases, I'm hoping that it's kind of logical and practical. So the first area is, as you can see on the slide, communication and language barriers. So I think, when you're managing international teams, there's always going to be a lot of differences between people when they're based around the world. You get it even in national teams if you're in a big country where you have different accents and dialects, but certainly when you have different languages, it's very different. So how did I kind of manage that? Well, I think it's very important that you have regular, frequent meetings. When you're managing a team virtually, regular, frequent online team meetings are very important anyway, regardless of it being a global team. Even if it was in a country where you all speak the same language, it's very important to keep that communication open and to be regularly in contact with people. So I scheduled regular online team meetings to make sure that the team could all stay connected with each other, and to make sure that the information that was being given to them and basically the objectives and the agendas and everything for the meetings were clearly understood by everybody at the same time. It's really important that the messaging is all received at the same time in the same way. And obviously that's quite difficult when you have things like time zones and language barriers. So we can talk about those as well. The team meeting scenarios are really important for the team members to be able to exchange information, to be able to connect with each other, not just with their leader, but with each other within the team as well, particularly as they may never actually meet face to face in their entire career. So it's really nice for them to get to know people online. And obviously it became easier, I think, following COVID-19. Lots of companies started having online meetings through Zoom or through Microsoft Teams, which is the preference that we use in TUI, or in other platforms as well. And it's become quite a normal way of people being able to communicate now, even if they're in the same country, with virtual working becoming more commonplace, even in the local workplaces. So I think one of the things that I made sure that we had regular, frequent online team meetings. And one of the things I found was that working in an international team, obviously not everybody is going to have English as their mother tongue. And I do speak quite fast. My natural tendency is to speak fast. So one of the big lessons I found was to speak more slowly. So speak slowly, pause often, and check for understanding. And that can be difficult when you're in a large meeting where, like now, where I'm presenting something on PowerPoint, but I cannot see people's faces. And even in a large team, when you're not presenting on PowerPoint, but you've got lots of faces there, it's really hard to be able to look at those faces and check that they understand, or they might not feel. In a big crowd, they can put their hand up and say, "Can you repeat that? I didn't understand it." So you need to be mindful of that and make sure that you're speaking slowly, pausing, and check for understanding, even if that means you say, "Does everybody understand what I'm saying? Has anybody got any questions?" Even if you're saying that fairly often in the meeting, just to make sure it gives people that space to be able to come back to you and say if they can't understand or they didn't quite get something that you said. I try not to use any jargon or uncommon English words. If I have to, if it's necessary to use a technical term or an English word that's maybe not in something that you would expect people to know if they know basic English, then I would explain what that meant and what I'm trying to explain within there. Or sometimes I would use one of my bilingual team members, who I would usually tee up before the meeting, but ask the bilingual member to perhaps explain it in the person's mother tongue. So the majority of the people that I deal with in my teams are German speakers or English speakers. I do have some French and Arabic in North Africa, but they also speak a good level of English or German. So I would use a translator, if you like, within my team. And I have enough people within my team who speak quite good German and quite good English to be able to do that. Now, 2 years, I think I mentioned earlier, a German company. But the majority of the activity is in the UK. So TUI made a decision about 3 years ago that the corporate language would be English, which means that everybody that works for TUI, any new employees being brought in, have to be able to speak a good business level of English. They don't have to be fluent, but they need to be able to speak very good English. However, it wasn't retrospective, so it doesn't apply to the people that were already in the business that didn't speak English. And one of the challenges I faced was that I do have a number of people in my team who have been working for TUI for many, many years, upwards of 20 years, who do not speak English and do not want to learn. Now, TUI are trying to encourage people whose English they would like to improve by offering English lessons in work time, but it's not compulsory. And some of the colleagues who are maybe a few years away from retirement, they don't want to learn English. So obviously we can't discriminate against them. We can't treat them any differently. So we have to make sure that we put something in place to help them. So that's why I said I would use some of my bilingual staff to be able to explain things if they're not very easy to understand. So watch out as well for differences in fluency. Just because you might have people in the team that speak some English or understand some English, you'll have fluency levels that are different throughout the team. Always target your kind of communications and everything to the lowest common denominator, really, to make sure that everybody can understand what's happening. If you don't, then often what will happen is that people will get disengaged. They won't be listening anyway because they don't understand what's happening. They miss important points and they don't feel like they're part of the team. They don't feel included. So you need to make sure that that inclusion is always there. What I do with my team meetings is I insist on having the cameras on so that I can see people's faces. I haven't got a huge team. It's 20 something when everybody's in. And so I can pretty much see most people's faces when I'm on a meeting with them, when I'm on my team meetings. So I will look out for the ones that I think might be struggling. And if I'm not sure they have quite got a point or understood it, I will ask, does anybody need that explained again? Or I will ask one of my bilingual staff to explain it again in German. I speak no German, so it's a big challenge for me. I have to make sure that I've got people around me that can support me in this. So the other thing as well is to make sure that when you're explaining things, you are being very clear. As I said, don't use jargon, don't use difficult words, and make sure that you are including people to encourage them to collaborate and encourage them to be able to be confident enough really to contribute to the conversation. Where a message or a session is particularly complex, I will follow up in writing, and I will do that if it's something that I really need to absolutely 100% make sure that everybody has got exactly the same message at exactly the same time. I'll follow it up in writing. When I first took over the team, I used to send all my communication out in English and in German. I used to translate it all using Google Translate. I don't have to do that anymore because we now have really good technology to help us with translation. Outlook has lots of translation functionality on it, as does PowerPoint. If you use PowerPoint Live, it translates as you go along. So there are lots of ways of people being able to understand what you're saying in written communications. So I would say if you do have international teams where their language barrier might exist, then some of these tips hopefully will help with that. I think they're probably all obvious. So they're not things, I'm not suddenly telling you things that you wouldn't have thought of yourselves, but it's just that as I've gone through the journey over the last few years of building my team and communicating with my team, I've realized just how important some of this is. And one of the most important things is this whole making sure everybody feels included and feels part of the team and don't feel left out. And that can easily happen if you're not conscious that some people in the team can't understand what you're actually saying. I often ask my team for feedback as well, just to make sure that I am doing everything that I need to do. Is there anything more they need from me? Is there anything different that they need from me? So far, so good. I've not had anybody saying that I need to do anything differently. Or one of the things that they did ask me is if we can start recording the team meetings, so that if there is a little bit that they're not 100% sure about, they can perhaps go back and listen to it again. So that was a good tip that they gave me. So we started doing that about a year ago, and that works really well as well. So I guess the next thing I was going to talk about links a little bit into communication, and that's that I try as well not to make jokes or use colloquialisms that might not be appropriate in certain international audiences. So you can sometimes have to just be a little bit careful when you're being quite kind of casual about these things. So because we have different cultures in different countries, and the next area that I was going to go on to is to talk about culture. So my next slide. Okay, so cultural sensitivity and diverse ways of working. So obviously culture plays a massive role in how people work. What's considered normal in one country may be very different in another country. For example, direct feedback sometimes is welcomed in some countries, but in other countries it's avoided. So, you have to kind of understand the people that you're working with. What are their preferences? What are their cultural sensitivities? And sometimes the only way you can do that is by researching, finding out yourselves. Google is a great resource to Google the cultures of different countries. Also, I used HR in our department, human resources. I used them quite a lot to ask them, the human resources of the German part of the business. I discussed with them and said, what are we allowed to talk about? What aren't we? And there are lots and lots of differences between the way we operate and what we can and can't do. And it's really crucial to make sure you understand that, because it is so easy to upset somebody when you do something that is not their normal way of working or their normal culture. So have an open mind. Make sure that you're not just assuming because this is the way you do it and the way you prefer other people to do it, that you'll ignore everything from other cultures, because that just won't work. You have to have an open mind. You have to be open to learning new ways of doing things, to adapting your own leadership style and the way that you manage your team, because your way doesn't have to be the best way. There may be other ways too. Working practices and preferences are obviously very different, and you would need to understand where they are in each of the areas. As I say, I've used HR really to help support on this, to understand what the preferences are. But one of the things that we have done in our team to make sure that we kind of get everybody on board with this and make sure that everybody feels that these decisions and working practices are agreed as a team and include everybody, is that we have something called a team charter. And that has been agreed by everybody in the team through various discussions that we've had, where we agree what our working preferences are. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be the same in every single country. What it means is that we are going to try to align if we can, if the team agree to do that. But if they don't agree to do that, at least we understand why they're different and we respect that. So we need to make sure that we do understand the reasons for why things want to be done in a different way. I mean, I talked about Germany. One of the things I noticed in Germany when I very first took over responsibility for some German team members was they're much more formal than us in the UK. They will, for example, when they're talking about someone or to somebody, if it's somebody much more senior or even a little bit more senior or somebody they don't know very well, they always use Herr and Frau with the surname. So it's a bit like in the UK, back in the 70s or 80s, for those of you who are as old as me, you would say Mr. or Mrs. or Miss. We don't really do that in the UK anymore. We use first names all the time. We don't really use the Mr., Mrs., Miss thing anymore, but they still do in Germany, and we have to respect that and be prepared for that and make sure that we're not offending anybody by calling them by their first name when they're not ready for that yet. They get there. They definitely, once they get to know people and everything else, they're quite comfortable with that. But I think you just must not assume that you can do that straight away. That's just one example of that in Germany. So within the team's charter, the team charter that I talked about, where we kind of agree things, one of the things we have talked about is when, just an example is, when do you call somebody? When you're working virtually, how do you know if you're going to be disturbing somebody? You don't want to disturb somebody, but you've got a question for them. So we use Microsoft Teams, and for those of you that are familiar with it, there's a traffic light system. So if you're free, then it comes up green. If you're busy doing something, i.e. there is something in your diary, it'll come up red. If you're on a call or in a meeting, it'll come up and say you're in a call or in a meeting. And you also have the ability to change it to do not disturb if you want to have some focus time, some time where you can really, think and do some deep thinking. So what we agreed, just to make sure that the system isn't abused and that it works for everybody, is we've agreed that if you're okay with being disturbed, you make sure it's on green. If you definitely do not want to be disturbed because you have something really important that you can't be disturbed while you're doing, you must use the do not disturb. But that's only if you are and for managers especially, that's only if you really, really can't be disturbed, because my view is that managers and leaders should try to be available for their teams 95% of the time. So the only times when I wouldn't be available for my teams would be if I'm actually in a meeting and can't come out of the meeting to be able to talk to somebody. But we kind of agreed on this traffic light system to be able to do this. It was, I think, very different for the Central European people to begin with. In the UK, people are quite used to, if somebody's on green, phoning them, because as far as they're concerned, that is exactly the same as if they saw you sitting at your desk and you weren't on the telephone, you weren't on a meeting, you weren't talking to anybody, and you looked, your body language suggests that you probably could be disturbed. You don't look like you're really, really focused. They took the green light to mean that. Whereas in Germany, they would always message first. They would see you're on green and they would message and say, is it a convenient time to call you? So we've agreed now in our team charter Green always means it's a convenient time to call. So they don't have to message anymore, which they've got used to doing now and they're happy to do. And we've also said, use the do not disturb, but don't abuse it. Just use it if you really can't be disturbed for a little while, then use it because you need to have that focus time. So we've agreed that, which is brilliant because all the team now know when they can disturb somebody and when they can't disturb somebody. There's lots of other agreements within the team charter as well to try to make sure that we all understand, we can work together, but all understand where there are nuances and differences so that we can make sure that we're all working as a team and not upsetting anybody else in the team. It also helps as well to understand cultural sensitivities outside the team, so the people you're working with, if you understand what the way it works in one country, if you understand how the Tunisian culture operates for your team in Tunisia, that is likely to be the same as the Tunisians in the other departments, and similarly in Germany and similarly in the UK. You start to understand a little bit more about the culture of the whole country, so therefore you can operate without hopefully offending anybody when you've got contacts in those other departments that are not within your own team. You may have to adapt your style and communication because of these things, or your leadership style. You may need to adapt it. Hopefully, we're all as leaders respectful anyway, but you need to make sure you're maintaining that respect where the cultures are very different in other countries. The formal versus formal, like I mentioned, the Herr and the Frau, and also having cameras switched on in meetings, all those kind of things. That the camera switched on in meetings thing was something very alien to the Central region colleague or the Central European colleagues. They didn't like that. They felt that was a little bit of an invasion of their privacy to actually be on camera when they're working from home. People can see their houses. So we were taught them, you can use the blur on the background, or you can put a background up that's one of the company backgrounds or one of the team's standard backgrounds. And they become much more comfortable with it and are much more engaged. And now they won't come onto a meeting or anything without putting their camera on. So it's really made a big difference. And that really helps with engagement and helps us in the team meetings with communication. Cultural bias is another thing. You need to make sure that you address any examples of that in your own thinking or in the thinking of anybody else in your team. You know, just because somebody does something differently to the way that you're used to doing it doesn't mean your way is right and that their way is not. It's just different. So you have to make sure that you give that kind of leeway for people to be able to make those choices. Where you want to change something because it does make more sense, you need to make sure that you're explaining that properly as well, and that you're showing that it's a better way of doing it. Now, obviously, there are lots of different legal regulations, different workers' council agreements. Those of you that either work or have colleagues that work or deal with people in some European countries will know that workers' councils have quite a lot of power. And they have quite a lot of rules and regulations. You have to be very familiar with those. Just some examples, I won't go into lots of detail on this, but some examples where if we want to change something in somebody's job process within their job to make it more efficient, if it's making more than a 5% change to their job description, it has to go through a long workers' council approval process before we can do it. If you want them to use a different accounting system, it has to go through the workers' council to get approval before they can do it. You have to bear all these things in mind whenever you're making changes, that it may elongate the decision-making process or the implementation process. But once you're familiar with it, you can work with it. It's just you need to do the research, first of all, to find out about it. They have different bank holidays, different religious observances in different countries. Sickness rules are different. Holiday rules are different. Overtime working is different. Lots and lots of different rules and regulations. And you need to be understand them because you can't change them. You have to just understand what they are and where the differences are. And you need to make sure that it works within your team and that everybody within the team understands why people operate in a different way. So different languages, different working practices, different rules and regulations. All sounds quite challenging, which obviously it is. Add on top of that, different time zones. And you get a little bit more complexity. So time zones and managing the logistics of those differences in time zones. So obviously probably the the biggest area that time zones impacts will be scheduling meetings. If we want to have team meetings with everybody in, it's quite tricky. And the reason it's quite tricky, feels like sometimes it just feels like, I don't know, calendar Tetris or something, trying to move things around and slot things into the right boxes. But one of the reasons it's tricky is that apart from the time zones being different, because Germany are an hour ahead, Tunisia are also an hour ahead of the UK, India 5.5 hours ahead. So apart from those time differences per se, you also have differences in the way that they're working. So in the UK, most of the UK people are quite happy to start work at 9 and finish at 5:30. That's their working day. Some may start at 8 and finish at 4:30, but it's generally around about those sorts of timings. In the central region, when I took over the team, I was surprised to find most of them like to start work about 6 in the morning, and then they finish at 2:30. So they still work the same hours, but they shift it right into the morning. Well, as you can imagine, because they're an hour ahead of us in the UK, when we're trying to do team meetings, that's quite tricky because it means a lot of them have gone home by 1:30 in the afternoon UK time, and my UK team won't have started until 9 o'clock. So it gives us between 9 o'clock UK time and 1:30 to schedule any meetings. You also have the lunchtime of the UK people, where generally they like to take 12:30 to 1:30. So that shortens the time window yet further. So we would have 9 till 12:30 as an option. However, in Germany, they like to take their lunch at 12 o'clock. When they're in the office, they always take their lunch at 12 o'clock. They go into the office a couple of times a week. They always take their lunch at 12 o'clock because that's when the staff canteen opens. And if they leave it much later than that, there may not be any food left. So they take it at 12, which is, of course, 11 o'clock UK time, which means that we only have really a window of 9 o'clock till 11 o'clock to have any team meetings. We can't have them on Fridays because we have members of the team that don't work Fridays. So Monday to Thursday, 9 till 11 is the only slot that we can have a full team meeting where everybody is in attendance. And factor into that people on holiday and things like that. It's quite tricky to get a team meeting. So again, as part of our team charter that we put together, we all agreed that we would always have the meeting on a Tuesday. And we all agreed that everybody would attend that meeting and would make the best effort to attend that meeting unless they were on holiday or off sick or had an emergency that came up. And everybody agreed to that. And we have that at 9:30 UK time until 10:30 on a Tuesday. So at least it means that we can get all the team together at one point in the week. Smaller team meetings go on because my larger team meeting is everybody. I have managers who look after different segments of the team. They have smaller team meetings. But to have everybody together, we need to do it in that 9:30 to 10:30 slot. But they're happy with that because we've agreed it, and we agreed it as a team, and everybody was able to contribute to that decision. So we do that now, which is good. And that means that if I have any information that's not urgent, I'll save it for that time so that everybody gets that information all at the same time. However, having the odd working hours, if you like, does lead to a few issues now and again. Like, for example, we might have delays in communications, delays in decision making because we can't get hold of people. So sometimes we have to have a little bit of cover for that. So that can sometimes give us a few problems. We don't want people to get burned out from working odd hours. So we're very strict about making sure that people don't, because they want to be good and nice to people, work from early in the morning till late at night because they want to be here when everybody's there. We won't have that. So we try to control that and make sure people aren't doing that. Most of all, we need to be fair to everybody. And we don't want anybody to feel left out. So that's really important. And then emergency contacts, that's another thing we have to agree. Because the German team, as I mentioned, do tend to finish a bit earlier than the UK in terms of the working day, we need to have emergency contact points for them, and we need to understand what they would prefer to do. In the UK, there's a WhatsApp group. In Germany, they prefer texting. So that's all agreed, and again is in our team charter, which is like a contract, a team contract. So that's time zones. I'm aware that I'm probably only got a few minutes left, so I need to speed up a little bit. So the next thing I was going to talk about was just building trust. Obviously, building trust is very difficult in any virtual team environment. It's always going to be difficult remotely. So all the things I've kind of talked about are all things that hopefully will contribute to be able to building that trust. Not understanding the culture, the culture differences is not going to help. So you need to make sure you've done that. So all the things I've already talked about are going to help us build up a culture of trust and respect. The treatment and communication needs to be consistent. You need to say what you're going to do, and you need to do what you've said, and make sure that that's always consistent, that you're treating everybody fairly, treating everybody the same, your communication is regular and fair. You need to be transparent about your expectations of people, transparent about why you're doing things you're doing, making sure you explain to everybody if you are changing something they do, making sure you explain why and they can see the benefits of why they're doing it. These are kind of normal trust for any kind of virtual teams, not just internationally, but obviously there is the added impact of the culture and the language that needs to be thought about in this. So that's kind of the main areas that I was going to talk about. So in summary, I'm hoping that that's kind of been quite interesting. And in summary, I would say the main things are clear and regular communication. You know, don't underestimate the importance of that. That's really, really important. Promote cultural competence. Make sure you learn about your teams. Make sure your teams learn about each other. Make sure that you all understand why you do, what the ways you work. Coordinate fairly across all the time zones to make sure that nobody is having a bigger burden than other people. Include everybody, build that trust, use any kind of technology and collaboration tools that you've got that will help, and keep an open mind, because, you know, every day is a school day. Stay curious, always learn, and you know, nobody knows everything and nobody ever will, so you're always learning. And as Henry Ford said, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, working together is success. You can build a great team that can do that if you take into consideration all these issues within leading international teams. And that's kind of it from me. So any questions?
Well, Caroline says she just loved that quote, Sharon, and that was very informative. Absolutely. Let me ask you a question as we wait for any of our attendees to chime in. What do you find is your biggest roadblock when you're working with different time zones, aside from the obvious?
I think, well, the one that does cause us the most of the problems is that people generally and this isn't just in my team, because in my team I do make sure that there is cover in the team. So if the team are going home at 1:30 UK time in Germany, I do make sure that I've got at least one of the managers or somebody who can cover if there are any urgent queries in the time up until 5 o'clock UK time or 5:30. So I don't really have the issue in my own team, but it's in other teams. So my biggest blocker is when I'm trying to get hold of people from in other teams that are based in Central Europe, and because they have this culture of starting early and finishing early, we can't get hold of people, and that can cause some issues. And in Germany as well, they're very private about I don't know if this is all of Germany, but certainly in my experience in my German teams, they're very private about their private lives. So they don't want you to be contacting them. The UK people, if I've got a question and one's gone home or one's on holiday, they don't mind me WhatsApping them and saying, "Oh, I'm sorry to bother you, but do you know the answer to this, or do you know where this is?" They don't mind that, but I don't feel I can do the same thing with people in Germany, not yet anyway. So and particularly when they're not in my team. So that's probably a bit of a blocker, but there's never been anything majorly critical that's caused me a problem with. Usually it can wait until the next day.
Fantastic. Now, are you using AI at all in your conversations? Because, let's say you can't talk to a human being at a certain time of the day, or is that something you're using to your benefit?
It isn't at the moment, but it is something we're looking to develop. So yes, we're definitely looking at that. We have some AI bots that are already being used in TUI, And one of the things we want to do is to set one up on to help our customers more than anybody else. But there's no reason why we can't get one set up to help internal customers and to help each other. So yeah, we will be definitely developing that going forward.
All right, and any final thoughts
Well, from me or from anybody else?
from you? I'm just getting lots of great presentation, Sharon,
Oh, thank you.
comments. So you're a hit. I just wonder if any last comments you have.
Um, I would just say enjoy the journey, because I've learned so much since I've been managing international teams. And of course, managing international teams means I get to go and visit them as well. So I get a bit of travel out of it as well. So I would just say enjoy the journey. It's definitely made my job much, much more interesting. And I love my trips over to see my teams abroad. It's just great. So yeah, I say if you have to do it, if you get the opportunity, then do it.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for the presentation. For more information on where people can find you, please tell us that now.
So I work at TUI. I'm based in Luton, near Luton Airport, and I'm on LinkedIn. So if you want to link in with me, then please do. And yeah, and contact me through LinkedIn or through TUI, sharon.bessell@tui.co.uk.
Sharon Bessell, thank you very much. I'll keep an eye out for you on Britain's Got Talent in case you belt out some tunes on there.
No, you only catch me in karaoke bars, I'm afraid.
I would love that as well. I love a good karaoke bar. Well, take care, and again, thanks very much for all
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone.